VE Day is today, right? Why was so much made of it on Monday and not today, my friend? Was it because it was a bank holiday?
I think because it was a bank holiday, and because I mean, for me, I don't think it's helpful for these celebrations to be drawn out over a series of days, because then people complain come day three, or they weren't very well attended, etc. So I think we do it well on the weekend before, and then maybe just have a 2-minute silence for people who want it on the day. And I think that would work better. But
well, you're going to be shocked by what I said. I'd have made Thursday and Friday the 2 May Day bank holidays to celebrate it into a 4-day weekend.
Yeah, why not? Okay, that's a very good, for a one-off like that, I think that's a very good idea. For massive events, why not?
Yeah.
But we're not doing that. I think we should do it properly on one day, whether it's a Sunday or a bank holiday Monday, and then get as much focus and much involvement from people up and down the country on that, rather than doing it over a series of days.
Obviously, I was going to say the new Pope, we'll talk about that in a minute. UK-US trade deal backslapping all round as the Don and the Starmer announced a trade deal which we'll see. We know so far zero tariffs on steels and aluminium, reductions in cars exported, some help for aircraft parts and Boeing, Rolls-Royce, which is great. But devil's in the detail. Of course, we are all naturally going to be challenging and looking at what we've given away. That's a fact of life, because on the back of this announcement, on VE Day, almost at the exact minute that's 80 years ago, Winston Churchill announced victory in Europe. Yesterday, he announced an Indian deal that, frankly, I thought was the biggest slap in the face for British small and medium-sized companies. I know we had to increase NI in October and screw you all over because we don't like anybody that's got a business, but we're going to allow Indian companies and Indian workers to pay no NI at all. Well, what sort of message does that send, Bob?
Yeah, I think it's an incredibly poor message, and although there is an explanation for it, I'm not sure it's a particular. I'm not sure, given how much taxes are going up, that frankly people are interested in a small print explanation. You know, we've had something like and look, this is a fault of the previous government as well, something like 500,000 visas to Indian, mainly men, coming to Britain, a lot of it on Deliveroo visas. I don't know why we were giving them out. We should be cancelling them and saying, thanks very much indeed, have a good trip home. And if Indians come here, they have to be the high qualified type. But the problem is, because we've got things wrong, and this government's been getting things wrong, even if this deal is a good deal, the Indian trade deal is a good deal for Britain, I think government's been doing so much else wrong that I think there's an unwillingness to listen, and justifiably.
I mean, I get that. And I also get, which people think I'm being deliberately cynical. I'm not, because I want this country to be successful. But yesterday we discovered that migrant hotel accommodation costs will hit 15 billion over 10 years. The only money they were saving by screwing pensioners over was a tenth of that 1.5 billion. And whilst you're out there backslapping and talking about Indian deals and US deals, and I get all of that, the reality is, in this country, there are many millions of people saying, hold on a minute. I mean, his idea about dealing with this in the election was let's, you know, let's crush the gangs. Today, all migrants will have to learn a higher standard of English under his plans to, well, if you want to integrate here, you're going to have to learn English. I would respectfully suggest, Sir Bob Seeley? Yes, Dr. Bob Seeley, why don't I say sir? I would respectfully suggest, right, that they should be saying, we're going to make it more difficult for you to bloody well come here and integrate in the first place, rather than spending time and money with translators or English teachers to make you feel more comfortable. We need to make this country, yes, we are the United Kingdom, but we're skint, Bob, aren't we? We're skint.
Well, we could very easily be not skint, because if we took a very hard line to asylum seeking, we'd be saving 15 billion there. If we got realistic over climate change, we'd save 10 billion there. If we scrap the Chagos deal, we'd save 9 billion there. I mean, it all pales into insignificance compared to the 1.5 billion hit taken by the pensioners. And I still don't understand why the government did it. If they did it to try to look tough, I think they've just made themselves look horrible and unpopular and rather stupid. If you want to look tough, you cancel the 10 billion to climate change projects in the developing world. If you want to look tough, you say thanks but no thanks to Mauritius. You know, there's ways of saving 20, 30, 40 billion, which you could then put straight back in to reducing that NI job stack and frankly income tax, and actually making work pay. The amount of people I hear, I was just in the swimming pool in my swimming club just a couple of hours ago. I was listening to a couple of guys. They're just fed up with the amount of tax they're paying here, fed up with the crime, and one of them, South African guy, was thinking, well, I'll go to Dubai. A lot of people are, because frankly you can run your British business from there and you're not being absolutely hammered for taxation as you are in this country.
But let's have it. You're an ex-Tory MP. I'm a nearly 60-year-old ex-Tory voter. Here's the facts, right? In my lifetime, however they dress it up, the only policy that the Labour Party ever have in power is to tax who they perceive to be rich. And whether that's people with small or medium-sized businesses or the non-doms or whoever, the idea is we're going to tax you lot into bleeding oblivion because of workers and people who are less well off. The truth is, though, that's not good mathematics, because if billionaires and millionaires leave this country, the revenue that the Exchequer would get is lost. And it's so simple. And in the past, you know this, if that didn't work, they printed money and we had inflation at 30%. They will, however many trade deals he makes, they will absolutely bankrupt this country. But unfortunately, you know this more than anybody, your party did such a bad job that the British public were allowing that. They voted this lot in because they hated the Tories that much. And that's not going anywhere, by the way. They're not even making an indentation, the Tory party, are they?
Yeah, you're right. It's certainly not going anywhere yet. Let's see it. Look, I think our handling of the economy was much better. And actually, Jeremy Hunt has, I think, had a pretty good record of Chancellor compared to the disaster area that is Rachel
But nobody's
Reeves.
Remembering that, mate, are they? Nobody's remembering that.
Yeah, I'm not denying any of this stuff, but let's look to the future. You're completely right in your criticisms. What we have to do is somehow get rid of this awful Labour government, and what we clearly need to do is significant welfare reform and actually pull out ECHR, get rid of all these Human Rights Acts and the Equality Act. If you come here illegally, you can't claim asylum. You're arrested. You put it up in the dock the next day. You're sentenced to whatever you're going to get sentenced to for breaking an entry into Britain illegally. You put in a prison or a detention camp. And when you want to tell people where you're from,
I would only say this to Sir Keir Starmer and to the Tory government before it. He managed it during the Southport riots, and quite right. I've got no time for the far right, but suddenly there were police, there were courts, there were jail space. We need to be stronger. Dr. Bob Seeley, you're a legend, me old son. Glad you enjoyed the swim today.